Hi, everyone. We're excited to introduce session 2 on financial inclusion. Our keynote speaker for this session is going to be Nehal Shah, who's in charge of business development for the Middle East and North Africa region for the National Payments Corporation of India. And he's going to tell us about their work with UPI.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys had enough food and you'll not doze off now. I'll try to make it interesting. So, yeah, my name is Nehal. I'm from NPCI, that is National Payments Corporation of India. And we are the only payment provider in India. I'm happy to be part of Scilab Africa and opportunity. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present UPI and the UPI use cases. What we have done in India is exceptional. Of course, we heard a lot of things today in the first session. We talked about scale, we talked about sustainability, we talked about trust, interoperability, privacy, we talked about security, we talked about standard, we talked about collaboration and sovereignty. To sum it all, okay, there. Okay. To sum it all, UPI has everything. I can prove that. So I'll give you an idea about the NPCI was formed under the Payments and Settlement Act 2007 by RBI, that is our central bank. They had a very simplified agenda that why they wanted to set up NPCI. They had a vision to go cashless society. They wanted to make affordable payments for all. They wanted to have inclusion, that means all the payment ecosystem should come all in a single platform and then they can work together. Multilateral approach, open interoperability and fostering innovation. Okay. Sorry, I'm just forgetting I have a. So I'll give you an idea about what is NPCI. NPCI was formed in 2008 under the National Payment Settlement Act. It is a not-for-profit organization. We are being governed and regulated by our central bank, that is our Reserve Bank of India, and India's Bankers Association. The CU, presently about 66 partners are the shareholders of NPCI. So these are basically all the banks, non-banks, big techs, fintechs, PSPs, and some of the government payment banks. The reason behind having this shareholding pattern is basically to create interoperability and collaboration among the entire payment ecosystem of India. What we are trying to achieve is a unified payment platform. The reason is because central bank saw the vision to having a complete unified payment interface wherein all the players, they would come and play. Rather than creating a competition between each other, what they said, like, let's have build a complete new infrastructure wherein they can come play together and then they benefit and complement each other. Wherein acquiring a customers, cost of acquiring customers becomes almost nil. You will see that most of the banks, fintechs, they run behind acquiring customers. They want to have a share in that pie of the entire citizen and population. What NPCI did is they gave them a platform wherein they have access to entire 100% population of the country. So they, rather than creating a competition, they will improve on the products and services which will attract the citizen to use their products and services. Since NPCI was formed in 2008, we started with NFS. And then from that onward, the journey started. We launched immediate payment system, that is our real-time payment solution. We have our own RuPay card scheme, that is a RuPay. We saw a greatest drive, of course you guys saw that in the previous presentation, PMJDY. That is the biggest financial inclusion drive where we participated in opening up more than 400 million plus bank accounts. 2016 is where we launched UPI, that is a Unified Payment Interface. And so on, the journey goes on. We achieved some milestones. With NPCI, we have almost about 11 different types of products, which you see listed down here. right from RuPay. Beam is our starter app, that is a Bharat interface for money. UPI, IMPS, AEPS is basically Aadhaar enabled payment solution. Basically, it's a digital biometric ID payment, agent banking kind of a payment solution. Bharat Bill Pay is basically a biller payment solution that we have built. Star 99 hash is basically the payments using USSD platform. NACH, check truncation system, and NETC, that's a national electronic toll collection solution. So after looking at almost 6 years, 2016 to now, 7 years, in 2020 April, NPCI decided to go international. Looking at the success that we have achieved in India, we thought why not to have to go global and have other countries to adopt this kind of a payment platform. So it's been 2 years we have been going out, we are going international and providing this platform solution to the central bank to central bank or government to government kind of initiative. To talk about some numbers on UPI, this is what the thing that we are doing. Last month, we did almost 6.78 billion financial transactions, and there are equal number of non-financial transactions in a month, which is worth almost 140 billion, which is almost 1.4 billion US dollars worth of commerce that we did in last month. If you look at the participants right now, they are riding on UPI platform. It's about 358 banks out of almost 1,200 banks in India. There are more than 60 plus app providers, including the big techs like Google Pay, WhatsApp Pay, Phone Pay. We have got more than close to 300 million consumers. We know the population of India is almost 1.4 billion. So we have not touched that. Hardly it is only 25% of population that we are looking at that we have coverage. And you'll be surprised to see the merchants, the almost 200 million plus merchants. We had those big players in India for almost 50 years. They were hardly able to touch 50 million kind of merchants, but with UPI within 6 years we have touched in India almost 200 plus million merchants. We do contribute in GDP. If you see the last 5 years, the graph, the number of transactions, the volume that we have done in India, we have growth of 160% of CGR, and we contribute almost 32% of India's GDP. I'll tell you how it is. How do we contribute in GDP? What we have done, because we run a retail payment ecosystem in India, so it's as good as you removing money from the ATM and putting it in your wallet or in your cupboard or spending anywhere else. But what we have done, the retail payments, what we have digitized, using simply scanning a QR code, a citizen or merchant can actually make payments. And this money, now it is actually into the circulation. UPI has a bank-to-bank led model. We don't entertain wallets because we feel that wallet is a drain to the economy. And we do not, so the money actually moves from bank account to the bank account. And as you see previously, we have actually covered almost 90% of Indian population with the bank accounts. The scale, right now we're running almost 15,000 to 20,000 transactions per second capacity. The architecture, the infrastructure that we have, it is 1 billion a day. That's what we aim for, that we should be able to do 1 billion a day kind of a transaction. And the response time is 30 milliseconds. So very interestingly, any transaction that I do is basically has to perform in less than 30 milliseconds, not even a complete second that we are looking at. So in these 30 seconds, we are doing almost 18 to 22 different API exchanges, which means there is a back and forth and confirmation authentication, debit check, good credit, all this transaction and validation that happens within those 30 milliseconds. And each API is actually digitally signed and traceable. So this is here we actually talked about the security. And not to forget, UPI is actually built on the open source architecture. The infrastructure is built, and because we are not talking about having a software or databases expenses because it's built on open source architecture. And so that the cost of benefit could be transferred to the last mile citizens. So we talked about the affordability. In India, we don't charge any transactions. Let it be a P2P or a P2M or all the use cases that you can think about. There is no transaction cost, and that's what drives us to have complete affordability in terms of payments. I'll talk more about other aspects. There's 7 pillars of UPI. That's what we displace cash. So interoperable platform. I can make payments using any of my preferred choice application. I can connect any of my bank, and I can do the transaction. I do not need to have a reciprocated application on the other end to make payments. So for example, I have a bank account in Citibank, and then I like user interface of Standard Chartered Bank. I will use the Standard Chartered Bank, I'll connect my Citibank account, and I'll be able to make payment to somebody on a Google Pay or a WhatsApp Pay. Similarly, we have a request to pay kind of feature. So not only that I can make payments, I'll be able to also request payment on this UPI platform. Trust and security runs on aliases. So if I say Michael Jackson at ICICI, what do you know about me? I guess nothing. Maybe ICICI, that's the name of the bank, but that's the aliases that we use. So that's trust and security. When I have to receive payment, I would ask someone to make a payment on these aliases. This alias is also dynamic. I can make n number of aliases the way I want it. I have got more than 60 applications. All 60 applications, I can create different aliases to receive these payments. Why trust? Because we are running on 100% uptime. We are not even promising on 99.99. It is available there on the website, on our website as well as our central bank's website. Because a single transaction failure means that you're losing a trust from the customer. And that's what we are very mindful about. Real-time payments, of course, instant fund transfer, I told you about, less than 30 milliseconds. We are running 365 days, 24/7, and that's an ease of any application that we use, we are able to make payments. Integrate with multiple serving channels. Who would have imagined that you walk into the ATM without your debit card and you can dispense cash? Yes, it is possible in India. You just walk into an ATM, you just enter your UPI ID, enter your PIN that you'll get on your mobile phone, and you'll be able to dispense cash. We have integrated all the possible payments channels because of creating that unified payment interface, the platform that we have built on. Collaborative engagement model, of course, that is the reason that we have got everyone on the single platform, so that everyone can have a win-win situation, have access to 100% population of the country. Open banking, definitely we have fintechs, we have got banks, commercial banks, and also non-banks like Google Pay, WhatsApp Pay, Amazon Pay, tomorrow Facebook Pay or Twitter Pay. Yes, it is possible because they just need to connect with the sponsor bank and then connect with the UPI connectivity, API connectivity, and then they will be able to also do the payments in India. API driven, of course, that makes it simple because simple API connectivity enables them to connect with the entire ecosystem. Yes, so it is not only the payment or to come into this, the benefits, I'll talk about what is UPI. Is it a product? Is it a platform? Or I call it a protocol, a simple line of codes that we have written, beautifully written by the UPI architect, which does a simple thing, debit or credit. That's what is required, right, in payments. You debit something and you credit something. It cannot be more complicated than that. And that's what it is relying on. That is the protocol. It is so flexible and so light that you can tweak and twist the way you want it. Whatever the use cases that you want to build, you can build on that. And that is the reason that in India, we were able to capture or win the hearts of citizens, because we had different modes of payment, as I've shown to you. But it's a user's convenience, because the user sees the two things: how fast, how easy, and how secure or trustable. So this is all the things that we have been addressing, and the adoption of UPI, it is coming from the consumer. So there is no push mechanism that we are doing. It is more of the consumers' adoption that they have been able to adopt UPI, and then they are making life so simple. There is no MDR, so merchants, they don't need to have an internet connection or a POS machines and then receive a payment plus they need to pay something. On UPI, a merchant sits with a QR code and then the consumer comes, scans the QR and make the payment, and the merchant receives money real time in his account without any charges. So that is more assurance, because other payment modes, it's just information that passes and then the settlement happens T+1. So you can imagine the liquidity. Since the money is actually moving bank to bank, there's more liquidity. We are doing almost 8 settlements in a day. So every 3 months, every 3 hours, we are doing a settlement, so that there's more liquidity that the banks have. The banks use that money to offer different products, lending, and various other services. So definitely it is the entire ecosystem. UPI is just not a single payment platform. It helps to central banks, it helps consumers, it helps merchants, it also helps banks and fintechs, because the NPCI, the UPI connects the banks in turn connects with the PSPs or the fintechs or the telcos. These telcos and fintechs, they actually, the banks, they actually, the sponsors to this and fintechs and telcos. These fintechs and telcos, they actually go out there in the market and they acquire customers and consumers for the banks. So that's the entire ecosystem that we have created. What's more important here, why I'm talking about this is the benefit, this is the growth, this is the inclusiveness that we have achieved in India, and our intention to go international and talk to the regulators and talk to the governments to adopt a sovereign platform. That's the need of the hour. I mean, we saw the example from one of the panel. They said, in the case of Ukraine and Russia war, there were issues. Imagine there was the same thing, like even the payment ecosystem was collapsed because of a sanction. Today, you don't have your own sovereign platform. There is no way that you will be able to survive in future. So my point and my push is, yes, each country should have their own sovereign platform, and UPI is ready. So our ask is not to build from scratch, build beyond, adopt UPI, and then be sovereign. So that's all I think I have for today. So yeah, thank you. There are some of the accolades that we have received, right from the Google, Meta, or Microsoft. Yeah, that's all from my side. Any questions you may have?
Stand at that mic, and I'll bring around the.
Okay, thanks. Hey, this is great stuff. Thank you. I have 2 questions.
Yes,
maybe,
please.
maybe very simple, maybe dumb questions. So one is, what does it take for a user to get a UPI?
What does it take for user to?
Get a UPI ID in the system.
No, basically, any of the UPI powered app, when you do a registration, you connect your bank account. And creating a UPI ID is as good as, you're creating your email ID. You enter your, whatever the UPI ID that you want. If it is available, it will be offered to you.
Second question, you said there's no transaction fees.
Yes.
Right? So what's paying for the platform to keep the speed and scale so good?
Well, interesting, there's a different model, business model. What we believe, there is much more than, the transaction costs. Because what the world has been stuck into is making payment and receiving payment. I want to become a rich. So that's not the thing, for the 100% financial inclusion, even our chief architect also said that, it's my money. Digital payments should be as good as transacting in cash. So there should not be any charges. If I have to pay someone 100 rupees, he should be able to receive 100 rupees without any transaction cost. Definitely, there are other business models that we thrive on, and this is something that I cannot disclose to you. But yeah, it is more over. I mean, to be simplest, if you look at a simpler way, a person-to-person transaction you may do 3 or 4 times in a day, but there are so many other things that you buy online. So that's where the secret lies. Yes.
Yeah, I also had a question about the transaction fees, but I guess you answered it. You made a reference to the use of aliases, and how then do you deal with the KYC requirements?
Of course, there's a whole method, a whole process that we go through. With the bank account, we do register with our national ID. We register our mobile phones. We also registered with because our national ID itself covers our demographic information, our biometric information, and that's a whole process that it takes place, which the UPI platform actually provides. So by the time when you do registration, when you connect your bank account, so when you're entering your details like your bank account details, your routing ID number, your IFSC, that you name it, plus the authentication also happens using your debit card. So you will enter, while the first time when you're doing a registration on a UPI app, you will enter your cards details like the last 4 digits plus the expiry details or CVV, which way do the authentication. You'll receive an OTP. So that's the entire process. Once you do that process, you can start using an UPI. Then after, you don't need to do that. And when you actually onboarding, sending a payment, basically you just enter the UPI ID or the mobile number. The application automatically, it will fetch the details, and then you enter the amount, and you enter your UPI pins to make the transactions.
Okay, I have a quick question. You mentioned that you don't do wallets because it's inefficient for the economy. Can you speak a bit more about that?
Sure. What I feel, let's say there's a telco, a country's population is 50 million, there are almost 40 million telco users. If even a single user puts a single franc into that wallet, per day, that's like 40 million franc drain to the economy. Why? Because that money will actually reside in the private player's wallet. It will be out of the economy. It will not be in the circulation. The same money will not be utilized by the banks or the consumers till the time they want it. So, and the same money is going to be being utilized by the private player for their own interest. So that's the reason we don't entertain wallet, because what we believe, the money should be circulating within the banks and within the country's economy.
I actually have a question.
Yes, please.
So a lot of the benefits that you've told us about for UPI are some of the benefits that have also been discussed in the context of centrally banked digital currencies. So in your view, do CBDCs have any role in India now that UPI exists?
To be honest, I'll not be the right person to answer that. That's our central bank will actually decide. But definitely, the kind of skill that we have taken up in India, I personally don't see a use case for CBDC, because we're already digital there in India, and the adoption of UPI is that high. Maybe some use cases if our central bank recommends, we can actually follow. But yeah, I honestly, I'll not be the person to answer or take a decision on CBDC at this moment. Yes.
Okay, and one other quick question. Are international transfers possible at this point?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what we need looking at, because what we are looking at, each country to have a sovereign unified payment interface, so that international remittances between two countries are very much possible, central bank to central bank, and because we talk the same language, the same standards. So it is as good as sending money from WhatsApp from one country to another country. In India, we are doing the payments using WhatsApp, but in future also that's possible.
Okay, if there's no other questions, let's please thank the speaker. Thank you, Nehal, for the wonderful
Thank
talk.
you.